All right, everybody. I was asked in my Facebook group to do a little video on SMR, otherwise known as foam rolling. SMR stands for self-myofascial release. There's several different things that you can use. They're quite frankly in your house to do this. There's a lot of things that you can buy on the market to do a lot of foam rolling. Now being that we're going through this pandemic here, this is a good time to use some of those tools that are probably in your house to release some of that tension, particularly in the back. I just finished out my workout in home with squats, Romanian deadlifts, military presses with dumbbells, and lat pull downs, and I've been sitting a lot. The foam rolling is going to be needed for me a lot today. But I'll just go through some of the things that I have here and kind of enlighten you as far as maybe some do's and some don'ts, some technique tips and whatnot. And I'll also put a couple studies that were done on foam rolling. I remember one that I saw was studying the differences with foam rolling before exercise versus doing it after exercise. What were the effects? Was there anything noticeable? And I believe the other study talked about whether you're using a stick roller or a foam roller. So I'll cite those below if you're kind of nerdy into things like I am. That link will be in below as well. So like I said, this was a topic that was commented on a lot in my Facebook group. So if you want to get in that group, the link will be below in the description. So let's get to it. Couple things with the foam rolls. There's a lot of different materials available out there. You can buy them just about anywhere. Amazon. You can go to your local sporting goods store and get them. What they're made out of is going to be the key as far as what you're looking for. The first thing that I would recommend is if you're new to it, get something that's a little softer. So you may have to kind of do a trial and error period as far as buying a product and see if it'll work for you. Just a slight word of caution if you are new to foam rolling. It's a little bit painful, and I'm not trying to use the word painful to scare you, but it can be a little bit on the painful side, especially if you're really tight, you got a lot of trigger points. Prime example is if you go see a massage therapist and they start working on you and you tell them to back off. That's what it's going to be like. So my recommendation would be for you, if you're new to it, don't use all your body weight and don't hang over an area that has a lot of trigger points and tightness for too long. Be really light, and then as you do it more frequency throughout the week, then you can probably start putting a little bit more intensity in there. But anyway, check out how your foam roll is made. Like this one is actually pretty soft. I don't use this one anymore. I actually use this one on my clients. This one is actually, this is made by a company called Trigger Point Performance. And this is the one I really like. I keep this in my vehicle. I take this to the gym. A lot of guys that see me in the gym, they see me use this afterwards. So this is really helpful. It actually has a piece of PVC pipe inside. So this is actually gives a little bit more rigidity to it. So I can get a more of an intense type of foam rolling, for lack of a better term. And you runners out there, y'all know what this one is. The infamous rumble roller. This one, it's the devil, period. But if you do a lot of training, if you do a lot of running, I would highly recommend this one, but I will tell you, it is not nice. It is the devil. So this is definitely for sure one that's really aggressive, and you really want to be not put all your body weight on it whenever you're utilizing it. So I use particularly on my quads, on my hamstrings, and there's some other little neat little tricks that I use too, which I'll talk about here in a second. A lot of people that are runners, they use these sticks, which are fine. You can throw them in your gym bag, in your running bag, and after you get done with a run, or if you're in a gym, you can use this on your quads, your calves. I use this occasionally. If I do use it, it's going to be on my calves, because calves is a hard spot for me to get with foam rolling, and this seems to work okay for me. But there's a lot of different sticks on the market that you can use. You put a lot of pressure on them, so you can kind of control as far as how intense you want your rolling to be. And these guys, softball. This is a baseball. These are in my gym bag all the time, and I use these a lot. I put hockey grip tape on the outside of the softball and the baseball. That actually helps with the ball slipping. Because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to have this on your back, rolling out those trigger points, and then it slides right out from underneath it. I mean, that's not too comfortable. So get some hockey grip tape, throw that on there, and you'll be good to go. I like the softball. I use that a lot in my quads, in my hamstrings, and if I really want something a little bit more fine-tuned, I'll flip it over to the baseball. Another thing you can buy the lacrosse ball. Same thing. It's rubber coated. It's not going to slide. But what I'll do is I'll go through some quick little things that I do as far as, I guess maybe tips, techniques as far as rolling some certain areas and whatnot. A couple little tips and suggestions whenever you're starting to do some foam rolling is pay attention to where the pressure is. Kind of maybe you probably do want to stay away from your joints for a number of reasons. Especially if you're new to it, it can be a little uncomfortable. Here's another thing too, is like stretching is beneficial, but you can overstretch, and you can overstretch to injury. With foam rolling, it's kind of hard to do foam rolling and get an injury from that. But I would just as a general beginner tip is to avoid rolling over a joint. It's just probably just not going to be too comfortable for you. I would suggest maybe even starting in the middle of the muscles. Like when you're doing your quad here, start in the middle of it and slowly roll down and slowly go up, rather than starting on the end by your knee or by your hip and having some trouble there. Maybe start in the middle of it so you kind of get the idea as far as how that feels. You'll notice that when you hit an area that has a trigger point, you're going to feel it. So I would suggest that if you're new, is back off your intensity a little bit by not putting so much body weight pressure on there. Ease off a little bit. Maybe use your leg or your arm to support you and kind of lessen that intensity there. And then once you get going on it after a period of weeks, then you can put your full body weight on it. Also, another tip too is when you hit a trigger point, maybe you only stay on that area maybe 3 seconds and then slowly roll away. So you're hitting that trigger point with that muscle tissue is going to start to relax, and then it starts to do this. If you're you got a trigger point and the muscle fibers are like this, and you're putting pressure on it, that's probably not going to be a good idea for you initially. Hit that trigger point, let those muscle fibers relax a little bit, and then they'll start to relax a little bit, and then we'll slowly start to roll away, so you're getting that muscle stretched. The other big thing is you got to keep yourself hydrated. Drink a lot of water. If you can get a gallon a day, that would be the best. First order of business for me, since I literally just got done with back, is I'm actually going to use this ball the baseball for my back, is I have a tendency, because I've been sitting a lot. I got a lot of mid back and upper back tightness. I've been sitting a lot like this at the computer. So I need to kind of get this, the trigger points, I need to get some trigger point release from the back work that I just have. So all I pretty much do is, you can see me there, just put that ball back behind, and I actually take my arm and bring my arm across. I totally relax that arm, and I just push into that ball. Oh man, jeez. Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about the trigger point. I got one right there. I always have one there. But I'm pushing into that pretty good. And then what I actually do is I end up rolling around on that ball just a little wee bit to kind of relax that muscle tissue. So you can do this just about any spot on your body that you have any type of trigger points. Just hit it, roll right over it, and stretch that muscle out. Oh, jeez. So really, with the foam rolling, it's not rocket science. If you're a beginner, use your arms, your legs, whatever, just to not put too much pressure on the surface that you're using, whether it be a ball or a foam roll. Don't put a lot of pressure on there initially. You hit a trigger point, stay on that maybe 2-3 seconds, that's it, and then just roll away slowly. The more you do it, the looser you're going to get, the less intense the trigger points are going to be. You'll start to loosen up through time, and then you can actually start to push more pressure on their trigger points, which will benefit you further and further down the road. I personally prefer to do foam rolling after I train. Check out some of the study links that I have below about whether it's beneficial to do it before or after training. For myself, I prefer to do it after. That's just me. So experiment with that. See which one you like, and be informed too. The other thing, and I can't stress enough, is to keep yourself hydrated. Try to get that water intake around 1 gallon a day. Keep those tissues hydrated, because the more hydrated your cells are, the more hydrated your muscle fibers are, the less tight you're going to be. You will respond to training better that way. Your body will respond better to stuff like this. All right, the first foam rolling exercise I'm actually doing right here is doing my quad. If you notice, I started in the middle of my quad, and actually in this position, you can't really tell with the camera angle, as I'm working the lateral aspect of the quad. That's the outer part of the thigh. For me, that's typically one of my problem areas, especially on the left side. As I start in the middle, I slowly roll up to my hips, and then I start to slowly roll down to the knee. Again, not rolling over the knee joint or the hip joint as well. And you can see I did a slight rotation, so I'm hitting the middle part of the thigh, more there we go. There's the medial part of the thigh. That's the inner thigh. Particularly in myself, since I've been doing a good bit of wide front squats and wide Romanian deadlifts, I've been finding some issues with my inner thighs. Have been getting a lot of trigger points, and they're actually a little bit weak. And now what I do is I actually just flip myself over and then continue on to the glutes. I'm actually working there that would be the right side of the glutes there, and I just roll to the right side to hit to the outer aspect of the hip. And then, as you can see, I start to slowly rotate a little bit to the left to hit a little bit more of the glute medius part. And then I actually end up starting to roll a little bit more to the left to hit more of the lower back and upper glutes. And what I'm doing here, I'm just adding in a little lower back roll, and I actually extend that into the spinal erectors and up into the mid part of the back and the rhomboids and the lats. You can see that my mid back actually needs a lot of work because I've been sitting a ton recently, hitting those spinal erectors pretty easily with that foam roll. I found that when I'm crossing my arms like that, that actually opens my shoulder blades up a little bit more. So you may want to try that technique with your arms whenever you're rolling your back. Now again here, I'm just switching to my left glute, left hip area. As I mentioned earlier, my left glute and my left lateral part of my quad are actually some problem areas, so I spend a little bit more time on those areas when I'm foam rolling. Just a little technique suggestion here. If you notice, I am on my elbow. For me, that's the position where I can get the most pressure. Now, if you're a beginner, you actually may want to be on both hands so you can actually control the pressure a little bit more and actually use your other leg. In this case, it would be my right foot that I can control pressure. So if you're a beginner, you actually may want to use your right foot to lessen the intensity of that foam rolling on your muscle tissue. Now, if you're paying attention here, if you notice my left side, since that is a problem area for me, I am rolling substantially slower than the other side because there are some areas I really need to hold, to put a lot of attention to with that myofascial release of that lateral quad and the medial part of the quad. This next exercise for foam rolling is actually to hit the lats and your subscaps. It's a little hard to get to the subscapularis. Typically, you can do that with a baseball or a softball. But if you don't have access to those or don't have that available, just go ahead and use a foam roll. You can do a little bit of rotating back and forth to hit that spot in the lat. And I also want to add here that it looks like I'm actually starting on my shoulder joint. I am not. I'm working that lat, and if you can see how far down that roll is going down my torso, your lats actually connect fairly low. So if you look at an anatomy chart, you'll be able to see where your lats connect. Again, I'm not rolling into that shoulder joint. I'm actually hitting that lat that wraps around that shoulder, and even a little bit of a rear delt there too as well. So another thing that I want to add is when you are rolling over a trigger point, you'll know it. Stay on that area for maybe 2, maybe 3 seconds. Slowly roll away. You want to come back to it again, go right ahead. Maybe do that length of that muscle or that area. Maybe 3, 4, 5 times. So like if you're rolling your quad, rolling through that area 3 to maybe 4, maybe 5 times. You use your discretion. If you hit a trigger point, stay on it. 2, maybe 3 seconds. Slowly roll away. Go through the other repetitions through that movement. Maybe try to work that muscle anywhere 3 to 5 times. Try to get that muscle to relax, stretch out a little bit. Remember, the more you do it, more frequency you do it per week, the less issues you're going to have, the less tightness you're going to have, the less trigger points you're going to have, and you're going to start to notice that, like if you're training, you'll notice that you're going to have a better mind-body connection as well. So, yeah, give those tips a shot, and let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.